Hello, everyone. I'm Tracy Derwin, and I'm here with Shane Buell. And today's video, we're going to be discussing the fires that broke out in Long Island, New York over the weekend. We're going to be showing some anomalies or suspicious circumstances that the fire broke out under, such as the humidity, the temperature being very cold, and the ground being frozen, and then explain some of the possible reasons why this is happening to this area. Before we get started, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so before you leave, and like, comment, and share this video so we can let as many people know what's really happening. So with that, I'll start out with a clip, and this one is, I would say, one of the most convincing clips going into how unusual it was that this fire happened at this time.
State of emergency in New York. Dangerous brush fires creating a dramatic scene Saturday on the ground and in the air as smoke billowed for miles just east of New York City in Long Island. Dozens of departments coming together to battle the flames. Those efforts slowed by strong wind gusts that caused the fires to spread rapidly. And those winds are expected to continue through this afternoon, prompting fears from the governor of a multi-day event. News Nation's Caitlin Becker is live this morning on Long Island in the town of West Hampton Beach, where we're getting a first look at the fire's overnight damage. Good morning, Caitlin. Can you describe the scene? What are you seeing on the ground?
The ground, oddly enough, is frozen. You don't usually get wildfires or brush fires in the freezing cold. But look at how hot the temperature has gotten. What was a metal sign on the side of the road here is completely decimated. And now it's about containment. As I said, it's really cold out here and the wind has died down. But even though you don't see the plumes of smoke, it is permeating everywhere. I mean, we've been smelling it all morning. And just as I'm talking to you, a hot spot actually popped up over here. So you can actually see on the frozen ground, the smoke coming up from this area. Now we're keeping our distance from that, obviously, because we don't want to get too close because that area of the ground is really hot. But this is what firefighters are up against. Even in this area that is completely scorched, you're seeing hot spots. I mean, Henna, a state of emergency has been declared by Governor Kathy Hochul. She is sending down 100,000 and 95 masks to the area for local residents and deploying places like the people like the National Guard. Oddly enough, one of the bases just down the road had to be evacuated yesterday, but there are a lot of boots on the ground. So firefighters and first responders are fighting this from down here on the ground and, of course, in the sky, dropping water along the area. There were 4 brush fires as of Saturday. As of today, 3 of those are out, and the one that is still raging is about 50% contained. However, Hannah, I do expect those numbers to change as the morning moves on. It's kind of a rural area where this had hit. There was only a few minor structure damage, just 2 structures so far, but the winds were really heavy yesterday and they're likely to pick up today and into the week. So that is a concern. But on the ground, the firefighters and the first responders have been really, really cautious of closing down these highways and these areas to keep people away from anywhere where you're going to see things. The area of West Hampton has not been evacuated, but Hannah, they are bracing for that on the off chance that this does really pick up. And then just across the border there, over into New Jersey, there were brush fires kind of raging all week. Those have calmed down a bit, but again, these fires can jump very quickly when winds picked up. So we're hoping that we don't see that today, but it is very, very likely that we're going to see high winds just like we did on Saturday.
So the really interesting thing about that clip, first she said the ground is frozen, yet there are hot spots in the ground. So that's very unusual. And the metal sign was, she said, decimated. So metal is not typically something that gets burned during a regular fire. So they're blaming the winds. And they also brought up that it's a mostly in the rural areas, and only 2 structures have been affected. So it's mainly the pine barrens. And so do you want me to do the West Hampton press briefing?
I just wanted to mention a couple things about that previous clip first.
Okay.
So yeah, like she said, the ground was frozen for at least overnight. It got below freezing and the ground was frozen. And the sign that she showed was melted. Now the pole was like steel and it was still relatively intact, but the aluminum sign was like there was barely anything left of it. So that was at least 1,200 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to do the the press briefing from, I guess
Sure.
it's someone from the fire department.
As you can see standing out here, part of our problem is the wind. It is driving this fire that started about 1 o'clock where I live in Santa Mauritius and moved very quickly to brush fires in East Mauritius, Eastport, and then to a big fire in West Hampton, just north of Gabreski Airport. The fire crossed the road, Riverhead, County Road 31, Riverhead, West Hampton Road. This fire at its largest, which is now still burning, is 2 miles long and 2.5 miles wide. We've had two structures that have burned, and we are now taking a very careful look at the airbase to see if that needs to be evacuated, depending on how the fire shifts. Our biggest problem is the wind. It is going, as you can feel out here, about 30 miles, 35 miles an hour, and it's driving this fire. And I just pulled down my hat so I didn't lose it. So I'm going to ask our supervisors to speak. First, Maria.
Thank you, County Executive. We immediately issued a burn ban when the fire started, and then shortly thereafter issued a state of emergency.
So that fire is moving. With this wind, a spark will simply ignite it. This is something that we're going to have to watch probably over the next few days.
All right, so that was really interesting that they're saying the only reason that this fire has happened is the wind. They also did a burn advisory, like they can't burn anything, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little suspicious as to how multiple fires started in an area that's not very prone to fires at a time that was cold and humid. And I want to also mention the last fire on record was in 1996. So we're talking like over 25, 30, almost 30 years ago. And so we're going to go into, why this area and why now. All right, I'll let you go into the other clips we have here.
All right. Thanks, Tracy. So this next clip we have is showing the flames crossing the road. You'll see this in a lot of these types of fires where the flame will jump a fire break like a road or a highway. And this was Riverhead Road, or also known as West Hampton Road. I'll show that one more time. You can see how close the flames got and how the flames were behaving as they crossed the road. But yeah, like I said, this was Riverhead Road and or West Hampton Road. And yeah, that just, shows how close it got to the cars and the people and stuff. All right. We also have an aerial view of this. You can see there's the airport right there. That was the same airport that was a staging ground for the National Guard. And then they had to later evacuate. As you can see, the smoke that was encroaching the edge of the airport there, it did impact one commercial building at the airport and another commercial building that were both partial losses. And those were the only structures that were allegedly impacted. I couldn't find any up close pictures or video of those, but luckily they were both only commercial structures and not actually residential homes.
And then something about that previous clip, was that the one where we caught the black smoke?
Oh, yes. Yeah, this one here, you can see how black the smoke is.
Yeah, and the reason that is strange is this is a brush fire, so it's burning like organic material, the leaves and trees and brush. Generally, when those kind of materials burn, it's a white or gray smoke, but the fact that it's black is a little unusual, and it does remind me of Lahaina. One of the first things that the people in Lahaina saw was a huge, thick black plume of smoke that came into the city. So that is indicative of fuel or rubber or I guess there's a word that you use.
Hydrocarbons in general, which includes plastics and rubber and fuels and things like that. And I think we've seen before in other clips that there was black smoke coming up from a vegetation fire, and they had claimed it was from the chaparral, the oils in the chaparral.
Okay.
I had spoken with the Robert, the arborist, about that, and he's kind of skeptical about that idea. He doesn't think chaparral would burn that black either. So it's really strange to see black smoke from a brush fire. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. And now the next clip that we have is the radar view over Long Island, and you can see the smoke trails that are trailing off. You do see a little bit of like scattered radar returns around the transmitter. That is relatively common, but they also do that when they're broadcasting in high power, their klystron mode, when they're pulsing the klystron. It can also do that. I don't think that's suspicious, but I just wanted to show that you could see the smoke on the radar. Now, speaking of radar, I also went to the College of DuPage Next Lab radar site, and I found something really interesting. So when I clicked on the low-level radar view, this is the low-level water vapor imagery, you can see these ripples that are basically standing there. So the water vapor is moving through the ripples, but the ripples themselves are relatively stationary. To me, this looks a lot like a standing wave, and there's very few things that can generate a standing wave that doesn't move like that. I would say the most likely candidate would be some sort of longitudinal energy like scalar. So it looks really strange, and it looks like there is some sort of weather manipulation going on there. Every time we see a wind event, we tend to see parallel lines like this that are perpendicular to the direction of wind travel. And so you will see this in the clouds sometimes, but even when there's no clouds, you can sometimes get this to show up in the water vapor imagery. And like I said, this was low level, which is near the surface. So we often also see surface winds in these types of fires that exceed the winds at altitude, which is kind of strange.
Right. And we saw those scalar, I guess, waves during or right before the Lahaina fire, right?
Saw them before and during the Lahaina fire. We also saw them during the derechos of last May. So there was the Houston derecho, and then there was one that went through the Great Plains, and then there was another one that hit the Midwest. It was May 16th, May 19th, and May 21st last year. We saw those waves show up every single time there was a wind event. And once again, they were parallel or perpendicular to the direction of travel of the wind. So I expect to see that quite often when we have a wind event. It looks like it is most likely engineered.
Okay. And then, so are we going to go into the possible reasons why we're seeing this happen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll let you go into the smart city connection and kind of give your opinion there. And then I'll give kind of my perspective as far as the connection with the political and like financial aspects of what happened or what's happening in New York.
Okay. I guess did you want to move on from the anomalies yet? Because we do have a clip about the rain that was received just the Wednesday before the fire, which broke out on the Saturday. So on Wednesday the 5th.
No, I want you to, let's go into that first.
Yeah, let's go into that. Okay, so I'm going to play this clip from Wednesday, March 5th, which was 3 days before the fire.
Let's talk a few more specifics. This is interesting. By 5 o'clock, parts of the area, a quick half an inch. The problem with a quick half an inch is rainfall rates could be sufficiently high enough for localized flooding. And then we add another inch to parts of the area. But dew points are really starting to scream too. So there's ample moisture. Watch what happens between, say, now and 3. Orange County all the way down into Warren. That's kind of the leading edge. So this means after school west, it's going to be a problem. The bad news is, look at the impact for the really busy corridors north and south between 5 and 6. This is Essex, Hudson, Union, Bergen, up into Rockland, clipping Westchester. And you're going to see not only the heavy rain, the possibility of an isolated storm, and gusty winds. And now it's 8 o'clock. It's your turn, Long Island.
9 p.m. until midnight. The heaviest rain is now east of New York City. It would be into Long Island, portions of Connecticut, but we do see the potential out there for 1 to 2 inches of rain, causing some tough driving.
But we do see right now rain lifting through the city. It's almost done in the city. It's almost done across much of the Garden State as well. You see that here, just kind of skimming the eastern edge of the state. And then the island, still a couple more hours to go before you're totally done. Expect some residual showers as we go into your Thursday morning, and the winds will remain breezy as that system continues its exit. Overnight, here we are at 9 o'clock. Notice where the rain is and isn't. It isn't over northern Jersey. It is maybe still skimming Monmouth, Ocean counties, portions of the city, but the island is what's still getting hit hardest. As of 10 p.m., just some light to moderate rain over the Twin Forks, and then it's residual shower activity overnight into your Thursday morning.
Okay, so as we saw there, they had rain just a few days before the fire, and dew points were high, humidities were high during that event, that storm. But then they're trying to claim that by Saturday they had low relative humidities, and that's what helped cause the fire conditions. And I just find that
What's interesting, it usually happens after the fire, the storm. So they maybe made a mistake.
yeah, you typically will see a fire or a storm after a fire. Okay. Let's see. So I did have some. Do you still want to show the images of the map, or do
Yeah,
we
yeah.
skip that? Okay.
No, let's show
All right.
those.
All right. So this is basically the areas where the two fires broke out. There was one that broke out near the Bronx, not too far from New York City. That one, of course, was dealt with really quickly, and it was put out pretty fast. The other one, let's see. Yeah, this one here was the Garrettson Beach fire, which was cleared by 4:05 p.m. But then we also have the other fire, which was near, it says in this map near Brookhaven, but it was actually close to the Riverhead, West Hampton Road area. I think it was just to the west of Brookhaven. And I do want to mention that Brookhaven is where Brookhaven National Laboratories are, where they do all kinds of nuclear and high energy research. It's very similar to Lawrence Livermore National Laboratories. All right. So speaking of the Riverhead area, the Riverhead West Hampton Road was where the fire had actually jumped the road. And I decided to look to see if there was any sort of smart city development plans going on in that area. And it turns out that Riverhead specifically, the area where the fire was and jumped the road, does have some plans. Now, they are a smart city test bed application since 2020. And they partnered with 555 on a 1.75 million smart cities test bed application. They also are doing climate smart community task force. They also have urban renewal areas. They also have the downtown Riverhead development, and they are also part of the Smart Cities Innovation Partnership. I also looked at the surrounding areas, which include, the Ronkonkoma Hub, the East Hampton Climate Smart Community, Hampton-based smart growth projects, and so forth. And this was a tweet by this person here on Twitter. And so if you want to check it out, you can go find him on Twitter and click those links. I didn't include all of those. I might include the original Twitter post in the description. But as for Long Island in general, they are also actively pursuing smart city initiatives, including transit-oriented development, which you've heard plenty of times on this channel by now, renewable energy projects, and climate smart community programs with the goal of creating sustainable and vibrant communities. All right. And then when it comes to New York State in general, the Empire State Development has New York Smart Cities Innovation Partnership. And this was referred to even in the Riverhead post. And so they're all affiliated with the same program here. And it covers basically all of New York State. So all of the major, I guess you could say, metropolitan areas and even some of the smaller cities and counties in New York State are part of this plan. And so New York City, I'm sure you're going to find Albany and lots of other even smaller towns are taking part in this project. And so it looks like Long Island gets to go first. But one thing I do want to point out is that there wasn't any actual structures that were impacted besides the two commercial structures, and it didn't actually clear any land that was zoned for redevelopment. So I think this could be just like a practice for future fire. However, I know Tracy has her own theories on this as far as like federal funding goes.
Right. So when I saw the plans for the smart city developments, it doesn't really line up with what's burning. But again, we often see like a test run before the main event comes. But something I've always, and this happens all the time, Governor Hochul declared a state of emergency right away. And what that does, it releases federal funding to the state. Now, I mean, it makes sense that she would do this, but it's like, why now? Why in the winter, basically at a time when it would be unusual? And I've been kind of following what Trump has been doing and his AG Pam Bondi. They've been going after sanctuary cities or sanctuary states, and New York is one of them. and they have the mayor of New York, Mayor Adams, and Governor Hochul have been not following the federal mandates for not supporting and not funding programs for illegal immigrants. He's also said that he's going to cut off federal funding to these cities and areas as well. So I don't know if that has actually happened, but I know, like, in the state I live in, California, that is a huge threat, and they are cutting back on federal funding for example, the high-speed rail. I believe they have prevented the $4 billion dollar grant that the feds were going to give to California for that. So it could be like a cash grab, a way to get around the federal funding cuts because of the sanctuary city status. So kind of, I guess, going around that by declaring a state of emergency, I think it's required that FEMA release these funds, and they're often a lot. Sometimes, I think depends on the situation, but it could be in the billions of dollars. This fire in particular doesn't seem like it's going to be terribly expensive because it's mainly the Pine Barrens, but they might be getting, this huge influx of financing and help. And sometimes we just don't know exactly where that money goes, as we're seeing from all these programs being investigated, like USAID. And I mean, in California, the homeless funding, like, where did those billions of dollars go? It's very much unaccounted for. And we see this amongst many different aspects of government. So that's kind of where my mind went, is it the way for the state to, make these federal funds available for other things? Because I can imagine if they're supporting the illegal immigrants with all this help, it's got to be extremely expensive. At some point, they're going to need another way to fund what they're doing there. So that was kind of what my strongest opinion is. But I guess time will tell if another event comes to this area. But again, it's so unusual that under these conditions, and after almost 30 years of Long Island not having a fire, they're having a fire now.
Right. Yeah, these are traditionally humid areas year round. And as we saw, they did just have a rainstorm just days before. And it was also really cold there. It did get down to freezing the night of the fire. So, yeah, it's really
Right.
strange.
And I know the Hamptons are in Long Island. So I think at least what I think when I hear of the Hamptons being threatened with fires is, all these like really high-end areas. And I think there's an area called like Billionaires Row where a lot of billionaires own properties, but it doesn't seem like it's threatening that area or those areas or those structures.
No,
So
those are about a mile to the southwest.
yeah, so again, that made me think there was an ulterior motive for these in particular. So is that going to do it? Do we have anything
That's
else?
all I have for today.
Okay, and I did want to do a little teaser for our probably our next video. We're going to be having a like smart city UN specialist, Derek Bros. He's going to be coming on soon, so he'll be able to shed a lot of light on the smart city initiative, the UN, WEF, and give some solutions to help prevent these things from coming to your area. So we're really excited to get his perspective and hear what he has to say about what we've been discussing this whole time. So I guess that's going to do it for now. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you all soon. Bye.